Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be on JNU campus. Can you hear me? Is this mic held close enough? So first of all, I find it very weird that we are going to speak about a massive movement that has broken the silence around Hindu Rashtra. For 12 years, there were just small specks of dissent, but this kind of massive takedown of the government is by a movement of people 14 to 29 years of age, but the people who are going to pontificate about it are in their 60s and 50s and 40s. So I feel there should have been someone from that generation speaking as well. But I'll tell you, and I think, but to be fair, I think all of us are also watching the movement and trying to learn from it. And because we've all been struggling since I think if any of us was alive in 1992, I was, with the demolition of Babri Masjid, at least from that point, there has been a whole generation of people who have been fighting this politics. But to see what happened here was miraculous. So you know already that I'm going to be extremely excited about this movement. I will leave the cynicism to Ajay. That's his job. He'll do it. I pay him to do it. I am going to, so when I said something like this at another event at SA the other day, it was the release of Brahm Prakash's book, and it was actually about his book, but I said a few things about CJP, and then a student, she may be here, came out to me and she said, aren't you being a bit romantic about this movement? I said, yes, I'm in love with the politics of this movement. Romance is politics. To fall in love, actually Bhavan Meghvanshi put it very well in his autobiography, in the context of the term love jihad. He said, लव ही एक जिहाद है, लव को निभाना एक जिहाद है, अपने आप को इस काबिल बनाना कि हम मोहब्बत कर सके, वो अपने आप में एक जिहाद है. So for me it's romantic. It is romantic, and if you tell me aren't you romanticizing it, I'll say yes, I am romanticizing it, because love is the source of politics, always. And that's, I saw that very clearly in this movement. So having said that, we are actually now already, I wrote one very positive piece about 16 days after the movement, the sit-in started. I wrote a piece, and now it's of course after so much has happened, right? And I feel that I want to now step back and look at what has happened and see where we can go from there. And when I say that, I'm not assuming that the left of my generation has to lead. Not at all. I don't. There are pieces like, there are articles like that which suggest that now how can we show them the correct way, etc. No, there's no such thing. What I see now this period as is a hiatus, as what we would call in history lessons an interregnum. It's a pause. I don't see what we are going through right now as the end of a movement. It's a pause. I think everyone who was involved in it, including the different kinds of leadership it had, there's the CJP core group, there are the left students groups, including of course very prominently AISA. So all these groups, everyone understands that it's not over, right? So we are waiting. So in that interregnum, in that hiatus while we wait, what has remained the same and what has changed? What has remained the same, let me begin with that, is the manner of response by a fascist authoritarian government, by this fascist authoritarian government. That hasn't changed. Because what happens is they replace Dharmendra Pradhan, who first of all resigns after such a long time, and then when he resigns, he writes that ridiculous letter which shows absolutely no sense of accountability, and then they replace him with his twin, who is probably even worse, right? Someone else from the RSS stables, who has actually, as we all know, but sometimes one has to keep repeating it, the education minister of this country celebrated the release of the rapists of Bilkis Bano in Gujarat during 2002. He was interviewed by Srinivasan Jain. You can listen to that interview. He's saying if it was done legally, then I have no problem with it, since it was done legally. So this is the education minister of this country currently. Then they set up a task force. The task force, high-powered, etc. task force. It has two kind of loyalist bureaucrats. It has the head of Infosys. And why is the head of Infosys on a education panel? Because it says, because he is going to figure out technologically, how to set up a technologically driven leak-proof examination system. That's what they say. Now, I think we all, those of us who worked in the universities for decades, we know that exam leaks of this magnitude begin exactly with technologically driven exams and centralized exams. I wonder who that person is in Rust at the back. Is that a student? I don't know. I felt he was standing very far away and just filming everything. Maybe it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, we're all on the face recognition technology of the Delhi cops anyway. It doesn't matter. Yes. So the idea that centralizing and technology-driven modes of exams are going to solve exam leaks is actually applying the problem to the problem. It's not applying a solution to the problem, because we all know that in the period 2000 to 2, you know, there's this person, I think his name is, I'll just read out his name. You've all seen his reel. He used an app to, Sujay Nadkarni, used an app to see how many leaks there were 2000 to 2014 and then 2014 to 2026. So he comes up with actually the most conservative estimate. He says that there were 24 leaks between 2000 and 2014, and so it's approximately the same number of years between 2014 and 2026, where the period of centralization, online multiple choice questions, etc., there were 89. So for him it's 24 and 89, but there are many partially verified accounts which actually say that in that period there were 35 and in this period there are 150, right? So what is happening is that basically the idea seems to be that we didn't do enough technology and enough centralization. So you're going to put Nandan Nilekani on the board. So that's a third person on the board. Then you have the chairperson of ISRO. You have the director of IIT Madras, who's an expert in computer architecture, security, and AI. But he also, as you know, said he promoted the idea that cow urine has antifungal and antibacterial qualities. So this person is on our education board. And of course, the most brilliant addition is Tapan Dekar, who's a former IB chief. So why is the former Intelligence Bureau chief on this panel? So it says about him, if you look him up, it says about him that he is known for playing a key role in generating actionable intelligence for counter-terrorism and anti-Maoist operations. So we all know how important counter-terrorist technology and counter-terrorist skills are, how important they are to conduct exams. We all know that, right? So you can see look at this committee. It's a kind of a militarized, bureaucratic committee which is treating exams as something that it's almost kind of punitive. They're treating exams as something that they will enforce through counter-terrorism methods, through technology. What is the imagination behind such a task force, right? So when I say what has not changed, this is the first thing of the fascist government that has not changed. And of course, there's no academic from the social sciences and humanities. There's no educationist. Of course, even if they had appointed them, they would have been from a pool selected from Nagpur. That's a different matter. But they don't even pretend. There is nobody from there. So the thinking appears to be that we have completely destroyed relatively functional examination systems through through corruption. As you know, the CBSE manipulated various kinds of parameters in order to give the contract for online marking to a company that had been blacklisted. This, as you know, was cracked by another very young person, Sarthak, who is a school student. Again, technology didn't work, so let's add more technology. So they seem to be thinking, okay, we destroyed a relatively well-functioning exam system through corruption, through over-centralization, surveillance, and over-reliance on technology. So now let's do more of that. If you look at this committee, it is representing all of these features. So that's the first thing it's done, this government. It has then passed a new law, as you know. It's passed a new law. The third thing, the education minister, the task force, and the new law to increase punishment for exam leaks. Increase punishment, increase fines. Now, this is supposed to be their great gift to the youth movement. This is the gift to people they have treated like armed, as if it was an armed army that they were dealing with, unarmed young people, right, who were protesting militantly but peacefully. So this is the gift you're going to get in return for the nail-studded lathis and the pellet guns and the AK-47s. The gift you're getting is a very strict law. Now, as a very old feminist, let me tell you this. We know this from very, very bitter sort of experience, that this is the gift that we were always given when we marched on the streets against sexual violence. Each time there has been an uproar against sexual violence, you get a new law, which is more draconian. It increases the punishment. It introduces death punishment, death penalty. And what were we asking for? What were feminists asking for? We want accountability. We want an end to impunity. We want fast trials. We want so that the person who is being investigated. So we want swift investigation. We want fast track courts to judge these things. We want safe public spaces. We want more public transport. We want lighting in public places. We want the police to do their job of patrolling peacefully, so that if you need something, they're there. None of this you get. You just keep getting laws with higher and higher penalties, as a result of which there are fewer and fewer convictions. But more importantly, what will happen with laws like this is that they will find and punish the weakest scapegoat, the person lowest on the hierarchy. They'll suspend the cop carrying the AK-47. Who gave him permission? Surely AK-47s are not just lying there in the police thana. He has issued it out. There has been a chain of command. Somebody up on top has said he can carry an AK-47 into the protest. Or when there is theft in Ram Mandir, the first arrests are the two men who count the money. So when you have strict laws, those strict laws are simply used to pass off responsibility to scapegoats. This strict law is a pointless, empty gesture. They will use it against us. They will find young students who have leaked papers. They will arrest them. They are the ones who will face the maximum punishment. So these are the kind of things that haven't changed. And of course, finally, the government has completely reneged on its promise not to prosecute students who were participating in these protests. Completely reneged because, and there's also either some kind of agreement between the Supreme Court and the government, or the government did not report correctly to the court what was its commitment that it had made to the CJP leadership. Because the Supreme Court, as you know, has permitted permitted government and the police to follow up on existing FIRs. Now, as the CJP spokespeople have pointed out, the court has not mandated that the government should follow up on these FIRs. The court had said you can follow up on these FIRs. It's up to the government to say, no, we withdraw the FIRs. Instead of which the Delhi government has closed FIRs. This is a very important difference. If you have an FIR against you that is closed, there is still an FIR against you. That is in your history. But if there's an FIR against you that's withdrawn, then it's not in your history. So they really think that they can treat these young people, these young leaders of the movement as idiots. They really think people don't get, even now they haven't learned their lesson. So what has not changed? The fascist authoritarian government. So obviously that's why I'm calling this a hiatus, that's why I'm calling this an interregnum. Because CJP leadership has said that we will be back on the streets, and there are many components to this movement. I think they will all be back on the streets if the cases are not taken back. In fact, 2 BJP ruled states have issued those directives saying we withdraw cases, which is very interesting, as Saurabh Das pointed out, because this means that the government has conveyed that we did in fact make this commitment to CJP. So they are very aware that this commitment has been made, but they're not going to. They're going to let everybody just hang and start targeting people individually. For example, they've started FIRs against the women who have been making, there's one woman, certainly for sure, who has an FIR against her for making a video mocking Modi. So this has not changed. But what has changed? What has changed is, and I think now I will only say what all of us have been saying and writing for some time now, and 16 days after the protest began, when it was still inside Jantar Mantar, when the protest was still inside Jantar Mantar, the hunger strike had begun and all of that. And at that time, I had written a piece in which I said, is this a turning point for a dying democracy? And it did turn out to be a turning point for this democracy which was dying. So I think what has changed is, number one, the fact that there's a kind of explosion which has just blown away the darkness and silence around the way people felt about this government. So many people have said that in taxis, if they wouldn't speak politics. If they were sitting in an open space or in a restaurant, they would keep their voices down. People who are even when they are being mildly critical of Modi, would never refer to him as anything other than Modi ji. Rahul is Rahul. Manmohan Singh is Manmohan Singh. Indira is Indira. But this man is Modi ji, always. Now nobody calls him Modi ji. If they call him Modi ji, it's very sarcastically with some completely insulting second line to it. So the breaking of the silence by a range of class groups, because it's not, we all know by now, it was not an elite middle class space. We have to remember, and this is a mistake that a lot of commentators on our side, the left as it were broadly, are making, which is that NEET is an exam that is given by middle class to elite people because it's the medical exam. And the people there they were clearly not all of them were going to write NEET. Now, I think there are 2 mistakes here. One is that NEET is an aspiration. So it's not only people like us who write the exam. In fact, I happen to know that the person who sits outside my housing society on the pavement and does tailoring, his daughter was going to write the NEET. So whether you pass it or not is a different question, but it is an aspiration. Because remember, in India, education is taken so seriously that the poorest family will cut down on food to send their children to a good school. Education is taken very seriously. So it's not that. But the second thing about, the second misconception is that exam leaks are only NEET. No, exam leaks, if you look at the list of exam leaks, I've been looking up the list of exam leaks forever. There have been, as we said, there have been exam leaks before, but just like about a quarter or a fifth of the ones that we see now, the number that we see now. But exams have been leaked for the post of Patwari, for the post of, what is it called, tube well operator. For the post of primary teachers in villages. I made a list of that. Head clerk, Panchayat development officer, forest guard. You see, these exams are not only NEET. It is about, these are all exams for which the papers were leaked, what I just read out. They're all exam leaks. So we are talking about people in villages, we are talking about working class people who have an aspiration to be something else. Now we heard about the workers who were at Jantar Mantar, who had given up their dihadi to be there. Now you can see it as solidarity with students, and it was solidarity with students, but it was about their children too. They want their children to have access to education, and they got a sense that there is something happening here which it might break the walls that stand between our children and education. So what has changed is the complete collapse of that invincibility that this regime had built up. And what we see, and I think this is also very important for me, from my generation, that I'm seeing, if you're saying 14 to 29, these people were, this is the so-called Gen Z age range, is that 14 to 29 today. So if anyone is 30 here, you're not Gen Z. So if you, sorry, I was going to say, yeah, that, okay, I've lost my chain of thought on that point, so let me carry on with, yes, about this group of people, that we have to remember also that when we use this term Gen Z, actually we are not thinking of an age range. This is the interesting thing, right? When you say Gen Z, you're imagining a kind of upper class elite bunch of young teenagers to 20s. But in fact, if you're going to go by the age range, then the workers who are striking in Gurgaon and Noida are also Gen Z. They are, and they have bravely stood up, and there's been, there've been strikes all over, but Noida and Gurgaon happened right next door to all of us. They're also, so what I'm trying to say is that somehow this moment and this call coagulated around itself a range of anger and a range of disappointments of many kinds. And this is what I was going to say, which I lost the thread of, that for someone of my generation, I find it very interesting and it's a learning moment, that these are people who would have been, 8 and 9 and so on in 2014. Their whole life, they have only seen this. They have only seen Hindu Rashtra, they've only seen the normalizing of hate, they've only seen the normalizing of Islamophobia and anti-Dalit kind of and very Brahminical kind of discourse. In fact, if you listen to, imagine being interrupted by a bird. This is why I love this campus. Like a bird is talking. What is it? Oh, I thought it was a bird. It's you. You're a bird. That's also fine. You're a bird. I thought it was a lovely bird. Well, that's also there. That's also there. See, I do romanticize. I admit it. I do romanticize. Matlab maaf kijiye mujhe. Gustaki maaf. So they did not get socialized into it. That is my point. That you grow up in a world where this is normal to talk about Muslims in a certain way, to use the word Sanatan Dharma when you're trying to say Hinduism, to be so Brahminical. This is something you've grown up with, and yet you know that this is not okay. So this, what I feel, and this is fully romantic and I'm happily going to accept it, I do believe that all living things are born with a sense of justice. And the sense of justice may start with you, that I haven't got this and the other person has got it. But you also have a sense of justice when you look out into the world and you see something very unjust. Little children don't take it as normal. They have to be taught that it's normal. That you're sitting in an AC car at a traffic intersection and a child your age is begging for food, that you have to be taught is normal. Rona mat, wo theek hai, wo theek ho jayega. That is what I see. Because how else do you explain the fact that when Abhijit Dipke said, come to Jantar Mantar, almost the first thing he said, he need not have said it. The biggest political parties in this country have not spoken up enough about Hindu Rashtra. Almost the first thing he said was Hindu Muslim ki rajniti nahi chalegi. And then of course Jai Bhim. Now this Hindu Muslim ki rajniti nahi chalegi was peculiarly misunderstood among our kind of people, as if he's saying don't talk about Muslims. Don't talk about, he's not saying that, right? He was saying we don't want you to mislead us with this rubbish politics. We want to talk about education. So there is this way in which so this moment gets broken, and I think in one way it's not new. I think this movement, the CJP protest, which gathered so many energies around it, including left groups and Ambedkarite groups, it's a form of politics that we see in the 21st century. We see it from the Arab revolts. We are the 99% when they took over Wall Street. We see it in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal. What do we see? What is this form of politics? It's not led by a political party. There may be a figure or two figures who are associated at the top. They do offer a point of coagulation, but it is a coagulation and a coming together of a variety of interests around one point where you agree, whether directly or implicitly, that we will not talk about or discuss the things on which we disagree about right now. We will focus on this. So if you think of the best example of this actually are the huge anti-genocide marches for Gaza and Palestine in all over the global north. It's not as if all of them are agreed on everything. There are anarchist groups, there are centrist groups, there are left of center groups, etc., Marxist groups, feminists, queers. But they are all agreed that we are on this one thing, Palestine. They are all agreed that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's their agreement. And on that compact, they march. That doesn't mean they agree on everything. Now, this means that we may be seeing, and I've been feeling this and saying this and writing this for a while, we are, I think, moving towards which the 14 to 29 generation may see in their lifetime. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime, this new form of politics, which is, I think, a more direct democracy, not mediated by political parties. I don't know what form that will be, because political parties, in many of these movements, the farmers' movement, they're told, don't come here as a party. They're not encouraged to come as a party. And you can also see why, right? Like if you think about the huge, you can see a split, a growing split between political parties and the people, elected governments and the people. If you think of all the Palestine marches again, there are the taxpayers telling you, don't spend our money on arming Israel. But the governments keep doing it anyway. So all these kind of spaces where people come together over one issue. Now, I would not judge movements by what happens at the very end. I want to study movements as they are in that historical moment, because if we start judging things only by what happens in the very end, there is no very end, right? History keeps moving. The train doesn't stop at one station, it keeps moving. So then we could say that the independence struggle ended up in Hindu Rashtra. So what a waste that was. All the people who died in 1919 and 1942, what was the point? But we would never say that, because that was one moment, then there's another moment. So this is a moment, I've considered this to be a very, very important moment for the breaking. So in that sense, it is drawing on the seeds sown. This movement has come out of the seeds sown in the recent past by the anti-CAA protests, by the farmers' movement, so that you can see the seeds. Like, for example, the presence of large numbers of young Muslims who were in fact told at the beginning of the mobilization, don't go. I saw so many reels saying, don't go, you are at great risk. And they are. But the fact that they landed up tells me that it is the anti-CAA seeds growing, right? they didn't, that's a slogan which in fact AISA uses and a lot of left groups use, that हम घास हैं फिर उग जाएंगे. If you dabao us into the ground, we just shoot up again. So you can see that, and I think any of you who was there, all of you who were there, you will have noticed, or I certainly felt it, that for the first time in 12 years, Muslims felt that perhaps there's a space for us in this God-forsaken country. Because CA protests were also largely Muslim, although very much supported by non-Muslims. But this was a space, interestingly. So I find that a certain kind of left criticism is that you're not talking about attacks on Muslims and Umar Khalid. You're not talking about Dalit issues. But what I saw was the dream of the left, where people of different kinds of politics were there, but they were not talking about their identities, they were talking about education. And education was being used as a way to talk about democracy, secularism, and social justice. And this movement is not anti-reservation. It could become a fault line, because we'll have to see, and a lot depends on how you all respond to it, how the actual movement responds to it. It has to be shut down. I'm already seeing very funny and important and good memes and reels which talk about why reservation is a non-negotiable good. I've already seen that. So this will be a debate. And this may or may not be a fault line. It depends on how it is dealt with. So there's this space where, so I've also been reading some kinds of left analyses which are reading what happened there in a very, I feel that space is being read in a fantasy way, because it fulfills some theoretical position, which is, so I've heard this being said, that the space of protest was very left-wing, very high culture. You're reciting, fairs and so on. And then you come out, and then there are people who are playing video music, video game music, and they are making all these different kinds of slogans and different kinds of chants. And that was not the case. I think you all were there. In fact, what was happening inside, everyone was everywhere. That was the point. So even inside that space, I've seen reels of them playing Sandeshe Aate Hain and dancing to it. And I'm, of course, in my generational and political space way thinking, what is the significance of Sandeshe Aate Hain? Is it ki ghar kab aoge, kyunki they're all there for so many days? No, it's just a song. They were playing a rhythmic song and dancing to it. Periodically, I would think poor AISA must be very embarrassed. They must be like, because it's a kind of, it's not something you imagine in a protest. So it's not true that there was a center and then there was a periphery. There were organized left and Ambedkarite groups everywhere. There were unorganized people who had just traveled to be there everywhere. There were people of different classes. There was a man who was a kabadi wala who said, someone asked him, why are you here? And he said, because it's a place where something is happening and I feel कि कुछ हो रहा है और मैं इसका भाग बनना चाहता हूँ. He felt part of a community briefly. I don't know what happened after that. Or there's Irfan, whom you all saw the videos of. Or there was a man I met when the first day I went, who was a young man, very young man, who had come all the way from Faridabad. He was ran a small business in Faridabad, and he came all the way to see कि ये क्या है और ये लोग इतना यहाँ क्यों बैठे हैं और पढ़ना चाहते हैं, ये अच्छी बात है, मेरा भी बच्चा है, मैं भी पढ़ता, all this, right? There's something about the moment that gathered together so many energies. And the final thing I will say that was different about this space. So this is what has changed. All this is part of what has changed. The mode of it's now the beginning of the end for this regime. It's the beginning of the end for this ideology. It is the beginning of the end. I know this. This is not a romantic statement, because the way in which young people of different generations, classes, etc., have shown what matters to them, this has to be picked up and will have to be picked up by the parties now, because that's what we have. And the final thing I want to say about that space is that what was very exciting and heartwarming is that I can actually say it was a queer feminist space, regardless of the class of people who may never have read Butler or heard the word queer. And by queer, I'm using it in the sense of the way we use it in the politics of gender, but I'm also using it in the sense in which queering is used, right? When you say queer the pitch, you're just going to turn things around. You're going to just not allow things to be straight anymore. They're going to be twisted. They're going to be. So it was a queer feminist space in the sense of the way in which, for example, young boys were going around handing out sanitary napkins to women. The fact that you can mock the regime using your body. So there was this reel that I saw in which this young woman is laughing her guts out, surrounded by boys who are probably her friends, and she's saying कि तो आप क्यों आए, हाँ मैं आई, and then आपको क्या लग रहा है? she said अभी तो मैं वैसे बहुत ठीक नहीं हूँ, मेरे पीरियड चल रहे हैं, लेकिन क्या करें, देश के लिए खून बहाना पड़ता है. So I thought that was brilliant, right? I mean, and you should see the comments. It triggers the BJP IT cell so much that Mohan Bhagwat has come out and said that feminism is the problem. Feminism, he said, is the problem, not Islam. This is a very, very healthy shift. Let him discuss the real enemy. Yes, feminism is the real problem. Let him find who the real enemy is and talk to us. We'll deal with it. So that's what has happened. There's a queering of older modes of protest. And that queering is coming from this sense of, I don't want to say disrespect, because there is obviously respect for one another, right? What a safe space it was for women. How many women have said that we just felt so safe among these completely strange men whom we've never met before and will never meet again. And you all know, you're literally, like, it was more than a DTC bus at peak time. That's how crowded it was. Nobody felt uncomfortable. So it's not disrespectful, it is disrespectful of authority. It's disrespectful of the way in which authoritarianism works. And it has, I think, made it very clear that these young people, there's a sense of responsibility. Actually, Aditi was she was asking me a question. She said, why did they come back? I mean, it was a rhetorical question, we're still pondering on it. That after the Lathi charge, after the 20th, why did everyone come back to Jantar Mantar? There was no call, there was no leader who said come back. Everyone they went back home. They went back with their plasters and their casts and their head bandages. They just went back home to Jantar Mantar. So why did they? What made them? And I'm not going to try and answer this question, but I think in the answer lies the emergence of this new form of politics where these kinds of communities are home, and these are the kind of communities that will be built. And I never thought I'd live to see this moment. I'm so grateful that I'm alive right now. Thank you. Thank you.